first of all, I'm going to give just a kind of brief overview of Incremental Group, who we are, what we do. Next, we'll move through just a high-level overview of Power BI, of the tool itself. And then next up, we'll get to the fun stuff, which is a demo of some reports that you might want to think about building, that you might already have and be distributing throughout your organisation. And hopefully just give some ideas and some illustrations of what Power BI could do within your organisation and for specifically your finance teams. So again, any questions, just pop those in the chat and we will get to those at the end of the session. I'll hopefully wrap up about 40 minutes in and we'll keep a good chunk for questions. So first off, just a little bit about us. Incremental Group, some of you may already be a customer and you may have already worked with us, but for those that haven't, we're a digital transformation and technology partner. We're in the Microsoft Inner Circle, which essentially means that we're in the top 1% of Microsoft partners globally. So an achievement that we've been really, really proud of in the last few months. And at the moment, we're sitting with gold and silver competencies across our incrementalists. Our headcount is sitting at around about 135 at the moment. We have offices in Glasgow, up in Aberdeen. We've got 2 offices in the Manchester area, one in the city centre and one just a little bit further out. And we also have an office and some employees down in London as well. So we've got some really good coverage throughout the UK to help you out no matter where you're based. So what is it that we do? So this illustration here is really just going to give you some overview on how we work as a company. The bread and butter of what we do at Incremental Group is Dynamics 365, and I think a lot of you on the call today will actually have dealt with this in some capacity with your Dynamics 365 deployments. So these include customer engagement, which is a little bit out of date. It's actually now more of an applications-driven CRM deployment that Microsoft's created. We've got finance and operations, which is our enterprise ERP system. We also have a Business Central business unit here at Incremental Group, which really facilitates a finance system for small to medium businesses. And our cloud and apps team, who really do a lot of the complex stuff for us. So all of our Azure estate sits with these guys. So I'm not actually part of any of those business units. I'm part of the data and AI team. And data and AI Incremental really fits into all of our existing business units. As you'll know, data is everywhere. Every organisation has too much data, one might say, and not enough insight around it. So part of what we're trying to do at Data and AI is really drive some insight and some intelligence around the data stores that organisations have and maybe haven't utilised in the last few years, which really is an interesting undertaking. So hopefully today we can show you some of how we would work in the Data and AI team and some of the things that we could do with the data stores that you have in your organisation. So next up, we're going to jump straight into Power BI. Some of you might be using Power BI at the moment. Some of you might be intrigued about it. Power BI in terms of business intelligence is a relatively new tool. It was a very immature offering for a few years from Microsoft, but in the last few years, it's actually became a market leader. It's one of the best BI tools in my opinion. I've came from a background where I've used many different BI tools, Tableau, MicroStrategy, Business Objects, a lot of those more traditional enterprise-wide solutions. Power BI actually fits really well as whatever you need it to be. So at the moment, Power BI sits as really a data ingestion tool. So we can take data from cloud sources like Azure SQL databases or online services such as Dynamics 365, or we can take data from your on-premises databases, so your more traditional Oracle or IBM databases. And once we've taken that data, we'll actually model it, we'll clean it up, we'll make sure that it's accurate for reporting purposes. And then what we can start to do is really derive some insight out of that data. With Power BI, we can create interactive reports, which is what we'll largely look at today in our demo. But we can also create real-time dashboards. We can create alert-triggered insights around perhaps limits that you have within your business. We can create natural language queries, which essentially is allowing end users to ask a question of their data in a way that they're used to. So with Power BI and with utilising artificial intelligence, we can allow end users to ask a question such as what was revenue in 2017, and Power BI can answer that question, which is just incredibly forward thinking. We have the ability to create custom visualizations as well as the hundreds out of the box visualizations that are there. And of course, we can integrate data from as many different sources as possible. Power BI sits as a Microsoft solution, which means it fits really, really well with the Office 365 world that we're now in, where we have all of these productivity-driven apps available to us, as well as sitting really well with Dynamics 365 and with all the Azure services available to us. We will go into these further throughout the next half hour, but this is just a quick overview of what we can actually utilise within Power BI, and then of course how we can distribute these to our end users. We can do that through the web application. We can do that to mobile. We can actually connect Excel to data sets that we've created. We can embed these into external applications and so on. It really is an endless experience with Power BI. So a few of you might have questions around licensing. I'll touch on this really briefly just now, but obviously if you have any further questions or follow-ups, then do reach out to us, and we'd be happy to talk you through these at a finer detail. But at the moment, Power BI has a really simple licensing model, which is that Power BI Desktop, which is the data authoring tool, which we'll see in just a moment, is free. Anyone can download it, anyone can use it, and anyone can create reports with it. These can't be shared securely unless you have a Power BI Pro license, which is really where the share and collaborate aspect comes in. So if you want to share a report that you've built, a data set that you've created within your organisation, and actually have the security around that, whether it be, departmental driven or whether it be row level security, you can do that with a Power BI Pro license, which sits at £7.50 per user per month, which is without doubt the cheapest licensing for any BI tool out there. And then for larger scale deployments, you can actually go down the Power BI Premium route, which is around capacity rather than user based. So really what you're doing at that point is securing a space within the cloud that is only for your organisation, and you're free to then use that as you see fit. Again, if you have any specific licensing questions, we'd be happy to talk to you offline about that at any point. Okay. So why Power BI? Well, I know the reason why I've chosen Power BI in my career, and it's because it's one of the best tools out there. And Gartner, who rank BI tools every single year, would agree. So in February last year, they released the Business Intelligence Quadrant, and we can see that Microsoft's just right here in our top leader corner. The year before, it was really sitting neck and neck with Tableau, but Tableau's taken a step back in this last year, and Microsoft has taken great leaps forward. Now, this is in no small part due to the fact that Microsoft updates Power BI every single month of the year. And it's not a little tweak here and there, it's really adding functionality and expertise every single month. No other BI tool can compete with that. And I don't think that they ever really will get to that point of these big monthly releases. Microsoft has, a lot of power behind it to be able to really improve the tool month on month, and that's something as a developer that I both love and I'm constantly chasing my tail over. But that's a fun place to be. So hopefully you can see the benefits in how a tool that can revolutionise itself month on month is actually really important to your ever-changing business. So now down to the nitty gritty, guys. We've targeted finance teams for our webinar today, and that's largely because we see a gap there. When we're talking to customers and we're out, building BI deployments, we see a gap in the finance team. I think traditionally it's been a little bit more siloed, a little bit more cut off, but there's a lot of gains to be had. There's a lot of improvement that can be made to your working day, as well as to the insight that you deliver to the company. So we've pinpointed just a few of the financial reporting tools that we're commonly seeing, and probably quite a few of you out there are using at the moment. So that would be the Microsoft stack. So perhaps one of the more traditional items like NAV or AX, or perhaps you're on Dynamics 365 at the moment. We've got quite a few customers who are using Adaptive or NetSuite, largely Sage as well. But the reporting with these tools, the native reporting, it's probably not exactly what you need. There's probably a lot that you have to give up in order to get your reporting out, or a lot that you're having to tweak manually. If you have another BI tool in the department at the moment, so if you're using something like Business Objects or Tableau, really my question to you would be, does that tool fit your purpose? Does it really answer the questions that you have, or are you then locked in to how that tool has been developed by the IT team or by specialists? With Power BI, what we really are intending to do is empower business users to go away and create their own insight, and really to develop their own analytical suite that answers the questions that really need to be answered and allows them to drive further improvements to the business with the skill set that they have. Something more traditional like Business Objects really depends on a skilled developer coming in and creating reports for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're really getting the insight that you need out of that, or that you're able to go and dig into the data that's within the organisation to create improvements. So let's talk about the thing that we're all thinking, it's popped into all of our heads so far, which is Excel. Now, Excel is something that we all use, and you will forever use it. There's no doubt about that. There's been quite a few revolutions of, let's get Excel out of the organisation. It never happens because Excel fits a purpose. It allows end users to really manually interact with the data that's there to get the answers they need at the time they need it. But it's not the best way to do it. And there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. So what I'm going to do is run through the reasons that I've picked out. And again, I have a soft spot for Excel. I've worked in organisations where Excel has been the reporting function. I've worked in organisations where there's been, very expensive BI tools in use, but no one in the business is actually using those. They're using Excel. They're taking the data out of the BI tool into Excel and then doing the analysis they need to do. At Incremental, really one of our main focuses is making sure that when we deploy Power BI for a customer, we're really helping with the adoption of the tool and making sure that that somewhat expensive deployment is used in the correct way and utilised in a way that makes the return on investment instant and really, really large for the business. We want the business to be happy with the tool. So one of the things that you will be doing in Excel is taking data from somewhere. So either from source or from a BI tool or a finance tool, and exporting it into Excel, into a CSV. And then you'll be manually tinkering with that data. And you will be creating reports and insight off of it. However, every time you create a report, so your monthly reports, your quarter end reports, your year end reports, you're having to manually export data for each report each time, tinker with it, refresh it, add new data. You're having to interact with it at a really granular level. And we don't want you to do that because it's boring. It's not really why you're there. You're skilled finance professionals who've been hired for that reason. You have qualifications, you have a skill set that the business needs, but if you're wasting your time really being a data monkey, then that's not good for the bottom line. And that's something that Power BI can take away, because in Power BI, once we connect to a data source and we model that data set is reusable. So that data set can just be automatically refreshed every morning, multiple times a day, whatever suits the business need. And we take away all that exporting, all that manual intervention. Which leads us really on to the next data part of this, which is single data sets. So if you're creating an Excel report, you're having to load all the data necessary for that report into that workbook. That's messy, it's painful, and it's slow. I'm sure that a lot of you spend a good chunk of your day looking at the spinning blue wheel. Again, we don't want you to do that. So with Power BI, we have the ability to mesh multiple data sets together in dashboards, or we can create, large, robust data models that are going to suit your business needs, and these will refresh instantaneously in comparison to Excel. Power BI is built with an engine that will actually compact data and allow that refresh to be plausible, rather than spending your day waiting on an Excel sheet to come back to life. Another reason that Power BI would really improve your reporting as well as your day-to-day job is that reporting wouldn't sit with one individual, wouldn't sit with one team. It wouldn't have to be distributed by a specific person, by email, by PDF, by shared drive, whatever you're using at the moment. Power BI would actually allow the organisation to self-serve their analysis. So you would be able to go into the Power BI web application, go to the correct workspace that you're looking for, get the report you want, or you can get the data set that you need, and you can go off and build your own analysis. That leads us on to another very, very, very important one. With Excel, with manual intervention, by exporting your data and tinkering with it, you're opening yourself up to a lot of error. Each person, each department, each organisation can calculate two things differently. And I speak with experience here that I have seen companies calculate something as obvious as sales differently. With Power BI, you would be able to actually define all your calculations. All of your formulas would be saved to an object, and that object is then reusable. Once that object's been defined by the business, you wouldn't have a duplication of that. You would have one single version of the truth in Power BI, and that's something that's really important. I think a lot of you probably sit in meetings every week, every month, where some higher ups are served insight or data. And really what happens is the meeting descends into the argument of, is that number correct? Do we trust this number? How is this number, how did we get to this number? That's the kind of meetings that we really want to stop people being in. These meetings really should be driven by insight and analysis. They should be driven by improvement. And by having a single version of the truth, you'll start to move towards that. And really what that means is that you can improve the business instead of improving that specific report. Another thing that's actually quite large for most organisations is security. If you're emailing out Excel reports, if you're attaching them, to emails, to drives, then that isn't a secure way to distribute your organisational data. A lot of the data that people that yourselves are dealing with is really sensitive, and the last thing you would want is the idea that that could fall into the wrong hands or fall into the public sphere somewhere. Power BI is one of the most easily secured BI tools that I've ever worked with. From the second you're licensed, from the second you go to the web app, your data is secured to your organisation. Obviously, the level at which you drill your security down to is up to you, and that's different for each organisation. But that's something that people like us at Incremental can help with. But all of your data and all of your reporting would be secure. It wouldn't be able to be accessed by anyone that shouldn't be seeing those figures. Obviously, again, we kind of touched on this, but Power BI can process large data sets instantly, especially compared to something like Excel, which isn't really built to churn through data. It's not a database, it is a spreadsheet. And the biggest one for myself is that really what we want to do as BI consultants is drive people away from descriptive analysis, so away from reporting on what has happened and a move towards reporting on what is going to happen or what could happen. So that's more towards a predictive model. One of the things that Power BI does really well is integrate artificial intelligence into the front end. So for someone like me, a BI consultant, I can actually go away and do some pretty impressive data science without any coding experience. And that's the same for business users. So for non-technical people as well, you can utilize the functionality of Power BI to really create some impressive analysis and some really insightful predictive analysis without any of the kind of training overheads. Power BI is intended to empower citizen developers, which is yourselves, and that's something that the tool does incredibly well. So let's have a quick look at the manual reporting cycle, as it probably stands at the moment for a lot of you, which is that we manually collate data, so probably through Excel. You're then manually manipulating and transforming that data, so you're tweaking it, you're making sure that everything's coming through the way that it should be for the business reporting. You know, you're putting in formulas, you're changing some figures, and then you're having to create your front-end reports. You then have to distribute these to your report consumers. Again, so that might be through email, it might be through a shared drive, you know, SharePoint, something like that. And then you're having to repeat the process each time you create a report. And it's probably worth noting that you're having to go back and tweak these same reports time and time again, because human error will happen. Equally, you know, if you've got a spreadsheet, we've all banged our keyboard before and accidentally changed figures without knowing it. And if you put in a foreign character, then it's going to break everything. We've all been there, we've all done it, we've all felt that pain and spent the time trying to figure out what went wrong and then realising it was something as simple. With Power BI, we don't really have that issue. We take out a lot of the arduous pain. With Power BI, with automated reporting, what we would be doing is connecting to our data sources, spending the time to create a data set once. Once that data set's created, we can build reports off the back of it, we can build dashboards. We would then publish these to the wider organisation securely. And we could set a data refresh. So what we're really doing is cycling back to the create data set piece and taking away all the manual interaction, because we can just refresh the data set daily, multiple times a day, weekly, whatever suits the organisation, whatever suits the report. So you can see that with the Power BI automated reporting, this is a straight line. We do this once, and once it's done, we walk away. That report is built. Obviously, iterations will happen and should happen. Iterations are good for reporting, but largely once this is built, you won't be going back to it every day, every week, every month. You certainly won't be going back to create it from scratch every week or every month. And it's worth noting that if you're spending a lot of your time building weekly and monthly reports, with Power BI, the weekly and monthly reports really would become daily reports, because they'd be available to the end users throughout the duration of the month, and they would be refreshed whenever you see fit, which really would take away a lot of the heartache and actually inform your end users sooner. Okay. So thank you for listening to me. Now we get to the fun part. So I'm going to switch to Power BI and just give you a really quick little overview of how the tool looks. Now, some of you might already know, some of you might already be using it. But for those that aren't, this is Power BI Desktop. So this is the client application, the free application. You can download that from the Microsoft site today. Once you've downloaded Power BI Desktop, you can actually just connect to data sources. So if you had some Excel sources, you can connect to those straight away. If you have something a bit more official, like a SQL Server database, Analysis Services Cube, you can also connect to that. There are, on last count, about 100 native data connectors. There are very few circumstances where your native data sources will not be included. And if that's ever the case, reach out to us. We could happily build you a data connector if needed, but there's normally a way to connect to whatever data source it is you have, and you can see that these are split by type here. But if we just scroll through these, I'm sure that some of you will be seeing, you know, tools that you're using currently. So once we connect to our data sources, we would just be that data. So really, this is the most complex part of a report build. So what we've got here is 5 Excel sheets that I've connected to. I've then told Power BI how these sheets talk to each other, so how they connect. And once this is done, it means that I can really start to create insight out of these without having to manually intervene with those Excel sheets. They're just 5 separate sources. I've told Power BI how they connect to each other, and now I can go off and start building analysis. So what you can see here is just the front page of a business performance report. It's worth pulling out as your finance people. I'm sure you'll be looking at the numbers. Don't worry too much about those. This is fake data. It's been created by me, so it's a wee bit skew if. Obviously, if I had a real company and my gross margin was minus 0.58%, I'd probably be pretty unhappy right now, but luckily it's not a real company. So what we've got is essentially a breakdown of some of our financial KPIs here. We've got our revenue for the financial year 2016 here. Obviously, this is a slicer, so if I change this, the entire report will update as well. So we've got our top line revenue, we've got our variances, we've got our month-on-month splits here, so we can see, you know, revenue versus budget. We've got our top line EBITDA, our gross margin percentage, and then we've got a really nice bar and line chart here as well. And you'll see that Power BI is really interactive. There's a lot of buttons to click and people should be clicking them. But you can see that I could drill down just into 2017 here, see my different quarters within 2017, and then perhaps I'm interested in what happened in quarter 4. And I can just keep drilling down and follow the data path, basically to find, you know, there was a dip here, perhaps want to see what happened in February. And I can dip down into the dates in February. So I only have data for 4 days of that month, and we can see that really what happened was on the 5th. So instantly your end users can actually go away and find the answers to the questions that they have when they have them. They don't have to put in a request with yourselves, with an IT team. They can go away and actually, you know, think it through, problem solve on their own. Obviously, as we said there's a slicer panel up here at the top of our report. And we can obviously drill down to different quarters, different months, different dates, and our report will just change to fit that. We've also got a second tab here, which is more of a project breakdown. So this is just to kind of show some of the visualizations that are available in Power BI. And you'll notice that my filters have synced through to the next page. That's something that we can turn on or off as BI developers, but always useful to know it's a part of the functionality. What we can see here is our revenue by project manager. We can see our revenue by customer name, and we can also utilize some further functionality like tooltips. Now, one of the things that I really focus on as a BI developer is the user experience. What I want is for end users to be able to get as much information as possible, to get the insight that they need to answer the questions they have without me hand-holding them through it too much, but also without, you know, 20 tabs here in our report. 20 tabs is a lot by any means, but I think in that Excel world, it's what we're used to. Power BI allows us to deliver insight in a very layered fashion. So obviously we've got tooltips here that will give us a further breakdown. We've got our grid level reporting here. Companies will always like to see the detail, and there's no harm in that. Power BI allows us to build grids, matrices, whatever we need really to deliver the insight that's necessary. It's worth noting as well, on the back of the kind of space issue, we can actually layer further analysis on top. So I've got a button here to toggle between the KPIs versus last year and the KPIs versus budget. So you can see just by clicking that these graphs actually change and these figures change to show the amount versus last year rather than amount versus budget. And I can just switch back again as well, just by the click of a button. So we can really layer a lot of analysis into one tab. We have another little sheet here for you as well, which is a little kind of profit and loss drill down. So again, you know, stacked bar charts, donut charts, you've seen these before, but perhaps just not as interactively. Every visualization in Power BI is interactive unless you switch that functionality off, which means that you can actually slice and dice the entire report by any other visualization. Obviously here as well, we've got a matrix. We can drill down on this, and we can drill down in a couple of different ways. So I'm actually just going to expand each of the years here, and we'll see that we then get the quarter breakdowns. We've got a little bit of conditional formatting going on. All these things you're probably used to seeing in other places. With Power BI, we can create these really quickly, really easily. And just to kind of illustrate how quick it is to actually start building analysis once we have our data model, we could actually just show you how we build some visualizations. If I grab customer name here from my projects level data, Power BI will, if you drag an object onto the canvas, it will illustrate it the way it sees fit. So because it's a list of customer names, it's giving me a grid. Makes sense, perfect sense. We might want to then see our direct costs per company. And we can see if I just drag that one here, it'll just continue out on the grid, but I might want to change that. I might actually want to see that as a funnel chart, just to get the split. And just by clicking on the funnel chart visualization, I can actually alter what I'm seeing. And I can do that as many times as I like. I might actually want to see a bar chart, a vertical bar chart. And you can see that it's easy, quick, efficient to actually change the type of analysis that I'm seeing. This is our visualization pane, and you can see that there's a lot of visuals here. You know, we've got bar charts, we've got area charts, we've got funnels, we've got ribbons, we've got donuts, pie charts, should you want them. And then we've got things like maps, gauges, cards. We will come to this bottom level of visualizations in just a moment, but I'm going to leave that surprise for now. We also have the ability to add visuals from the Microsoft Marketplace. Now, it's worth noting that the Marketplace allows developers to upload custom visuals. Not all of them have been checked by Microsoft, so I would say if you're ever going to use these in the organisation, just make sure you use one with the verified blue tick. That means that Microsoft's actually checked that code and given it the blue tick of approval. So you can see we can actually skip straight to Power BI Certified just to make sure there's no confusion. And you can see that there's just further types of analysis. So things like word clouds, if you were doing any sort of qualitative analysis. We've got, you know, KPI matrices, sunbursts, anything and everything really. There's never been an instance where I haven't been able to find a visualization that that customer needs so far, thankfully. And what we can do as well is actually go back to the concept of artificial intelligence in Power BI. Now, there's a few ways that AI is included in Power BI. And one of those ways, and one of the best ways in my opinion, is through Q&A. So Q&A is a visual, which is this one here. It's also available on our toolbar as ask a question. And this goes back to our natural language query. So basically we can ask Power BI a question. Obviously it has to be relating to the data set that's within the report, but we could ask, you know, what is the gross margin profit by voucher? And Power BI will give us some sort of a visual. It's a bad one. Let me change that to customer. So again, the result will be as good as your question, but you can see here, because I've asked it to give me the gross margin profit by customer, it's decided that a bar chart was the best way to do that. Once this is created, you can actually turn it into a visual of its own, and you can then include that in your report. So again, it's taking out the complexity of developing business intelligence and really putting the power back in the end user's hand instead of only someone like me, someone with a BI development background. One of the other visuals that Microsoft just added is the decomposition tree. So again, you can actually do some really good root cause analysis with this tool. And I would say that you definitely want to poke around in these. You want to have a look around, see what fits with the business, but there's some really powerful insights to be gained. So one of the questions that you might have at this point is, okay, we've got this report, we're happy with it, you know, we want to promote it to the business. How do we do that? How do we take it from Power BI desktop over to, you know, our shared licensed web application? Well, there's this handy button called publish. Once I'm happy with the report and I want to share it with the business, I just click the publish button. And then I'll get a list of workspaces that are available to me. These are all secured, so they will largely match your Office 365 deployment in groups, but you can create workspaces only for Power BI. So I've already uploaded this, so I'm just going to leave it, but all I would be doing is hitting select, and then this report will be published to the web service. So if I just switch over to Chrome, we'll see that in my workspace, the webinar demo is now uploaded, and you'll see that it looks and feels the exact same. You know, I can click buttons, I can filter by year, I can filter by anything else that I fancy, and obviously I can still drill down. I can do anything that I can do in the desktop in here, and I've got all of my tabs just on the left-hand side. So once this report is in the service, I can share it with my colleagues. So there's just a handy kind of toolbar here at the top, nothing that we're not used to, and I could share that with one of my colleagues just now. And I could say, check out the new business report. From here, you can control a lot of the security. We won't get into that today, but obviously if this is something you wanted to talk to us about further, we can do a session just for your organisation. What will happen is that Paul will get an email with this report link in it. This report link's secure. Once clicked, it'll take him to this web page, the same one I'm on. However, without a license and without the correct authorization, Paul wouldn't actually see this report. So he needs to be authorized by the admin in order to see this. In this case, I'm the admin because it's my reports and my workspace. But this is where the security really feeds in well. Excuse me. So once we've got our report into the service, we can then start to collaborate on it. So other users could perhaps leave comments. And one of the really cool things with this that I love, because in my previous employments, I've spent days and days of time looking into perceived issues with reports when actually there isn't one. The issue is that someone's had a filter on and not realised it and thought the number was wrong because of that. So you can see I've got 2017 in fiscal quarter 3. If I leave a note saying, Paul, why was this quarter so low? If you can spell quarter, there we go. If I post that, you'll see that there's a little bookmark attached to my comment. Now, when Paul comes in to look at this, he can select that bookmark and the report will filter to the exact view I was looking at when I made that comment. For me, that's a lifesaver. That saves so much time and effort and really just makes the interaction with the tool so much better. We can also do some more stuff around sharing the report. We can view related reports. Again, that's artificial intelligence being used by Power BI to try and help us mitigate duplication. Of course, we can edit the report in here as well. We can also subscribe to it. If you would like to subscribe to a report, you can actually self-serve that, whereas previously that would be for an admin to do. You can set up your subscription to be daily, weekly, when the report is updated, whatever suits really. I'm just going to check the time, guys. I'm aware I've been talking for a while. Perfect, okay. So once we're happy with our report, it's out in the world, two things happen. So if I pop into my workspace really quickly, when I uploaded this report, I didn't actually just upload a report. And you can see the report's down here in my section. It's called Webinar Demo, that's it there. What actually happened was the report loaded in, but also a separate entity called the dataset was loaded in. And if we scroll down, we'll see Webinar Demo here. Now, the dataset that we've created for this report, if that's certified, if you're happy with that, that really becomes the basis of self-serve for any other members of the organisation deemed, skilled enough to do that. And what happens is if I select the webinar demo dataset, you can see that I get a blank report here, but I get the same data model. So I get the same objects. So you'll see here, customer name, direct costs, gross margins, all the same data we had in our original report. And I can go off and perhaps create my own insights. If I had a different question to the person that built the report, but for the same data, then this is where I can go away and find the insight I need in the time that I need it. And rather than having to go back to that first report author, I can actually answer my own questions and just save a lot of time and effort and really just empower people to get their job done. So that's the two main splits of a report versus a data set. Now, we talked a little bit at the beginning about interactive reports versus dashboards. What we built was an interactive report. A dashboard is something different. A dashboard only exists in the Power BI service here in the web application. And I can actually show you what that means. So a dashboard allows us to pin visualizations from reports, and that can be from multiple reports. So if I just go ahead and click this little pin button here, and name this webinar demo as well. So if I go over, you can see that I've now got this canvas, this space with my pinned visualization in it, and I can resize that. I can hover over it. I can't interact with it, and that's the biggest difference. Interactive reports you can interact with, dashboards you cannot. So dashboards really are intended for high-level overviews, and if I click on this visual in the way that I would normally do in an interactive report, it'll actually take me back to the report, or it should do. Now, we couldn't have got through a webinar without some sort of a technical issue, so it seems like we're having our first one. So typically what would happen is when you click on this pin tile, it would take you back to the source report. But the reason why dashboards are useful to companies is because we can actually pin visuals from multiple reports, therefore from multiple data sets. So if I take just an EC report that I've made in the past, I could also pin, this map over to the webinar demo. And if we pop back over again, we'll see that down here we've got our map. So really this allows us to build an augmented piece of analysis for perhaps like board level or departmental kind of monthly updates. This is where dashboards become really useful, and obviously you've got more real estate in a dashboard. These are endless. You could attach as much analysis as you want within this page. One of the features of a dashboard that's really, really useful as well, and if I pop over to one of our reports and just grab a card, we can set up alerts. So these are data-driven alerts, which means that if one of our KPIs crosses a threshold that we've defined, then an alert will be triggered and it'll be sent to anyone that you would like it to be sent to, essentially. So that can be sent to someone within the service, so it would appear in their notifications. Alternatively, it can be posted to a Teams channel. But if I just pop this card into the dashboard, I'll really quickly show you what that looks like. Okay, so now that we've got our cards, the alerts are only available for a few types of visualizations at the moment, which is why I've had to add the card in there. But you can see that I can add an alert rule. So I can rename it, but I'll leave it as alert for revenue. And I can say if the revenue falls below 70,000, then I would like to know, and I would like to know every hour. I can save and close that. And then when this report's next published and this revenue figure's updated, I'll basically get an alert saying that revenue's dropped below 70,000. That allows end users to go away and actually act on the data rather than just see the data a day, a week, a month later. You have the opportunity to change the outcome. And that's where Power BI can really deliver a lot of usefulness to every organization. So I think that gives us a really quick whistle-stop tour of Power BI as a tool.